Welcome back, everybody. We are here. Episode, man, I don't even know what episode this is. What do we got? Like 8 or 9? Trent, do you have some background information?
I'll look it up as we're talking. Good radio, but I think we're approaching double digits if we're not there already. This is a big deal.
Oh, hey. They're heating up. They're heating up over a little bit over on the Double Tech
This
podcast.
this is
I
this
am
is number 10. This is number 10.
we have breached oh man, we got to be extra special for this pod today. This is the Double Tech podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Ethan. This is Trent. Trent, you are currently in a room with a Detroit Lions flag, and I'm not sure what that painting is on the wall to your back left, I'm assuming. What is that?
That is Ace Frehley, guitarist for the band Kiss. I painted it one night for fun, and I just decided to hang it up on the wall with a thumbtack. So that's what we're working with over here.
That is extremely cool. Trent, it's been a little bit since we've gotten on the pod. I've gotten a couple people reaching out asking when the next episode is going to be. You got to give the people what they want. Got to give the people what they want. We're here for episode 10, a decade special, if you may. And Trent's got an Alani in hand. I have an almost gone glass of iced coffee. But nonetheless, we're going to give you top tier sports segmented content today. Trent, how have you been? I know it's been a couple weeks. We actually got together in Florida last week, got a little sun. How have you been, brother?
I'm good, man. It was great to see you. I was going to say we got to at least throw that in there because I mentioned this on social media, but we ran the beach in cornhole, basically.
It
No one can
was
take down
never
the
a
old
question. Double Tech is officially 3-0. What was it, 2-0 or 3-0 in bags? So looking to take down every single podcast that could possibly stand in their way. We're coming for you. Pardon my take. We're coming for you. All the big names. The Double Tech is currently on the rise. Just one of the hottest podcasts out right now. Like Trent said, we got some time on the beach, undefeated in cornhole. Obviously, got to talk some sports as well. Trent, how has sports radio been treating you at this time of the year? Because this is like a weird kind of lull-ish, I feel like. There's no football. We're kind of getting close to the draft. We got the NBA playoffs starting up. MLB season's now in full swing. What is it looking like for you over there in Tampa?
Well, down here specifically, it's kind of wild because the Tampa Bay Lightning and Florida Panthers are playing each other in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So you got that. You got the Battle of Florida. The Miami Heat got through the play-in, so they're going to be playing the Celtics. And, Jimmy Butler's a little hobbled, but the Heat fans they're strong down here. And then the Masters happened last week or 2 weeks ago now, whatever. But golf is huge down here. So now that golf season is kind of in full swing and the majors are starting to roll in, that's been a lot of there's been a lot of talk with that too. So there's been no shortage of content down this way.
So Trent, you're kind of like, I would say, my sports connoisseur, and like I'm a massive sports fan, but I'm not really in like the rule books as much and into like the intricacies of the seasons as much. So I had a couple questions to ask, things that maybe the viewers might have wanted to know. So the first question I want to ask comes down to the NHL, and maybe I'm just not really an NHL guy to answer this, but so the Red Wings barely missed out on the playoffs, and I knew it was coming down to the end, but how was it that the Capitals had that like minus 30 something goal differential tied with the Red Wings, and then the Red Wings were the ones that didn't make it? Like, how does that work? How does the tiebreaker work?
It's by points. So it's not necessarily even how many games you win, it's how many points you have. So that can get confusing because then as the season goes on, you got to keep track of like who has games in hand, which means like who has games left to play. Like you could be technically tied in the standings, but you have 2 less games on the schedule than the team you're tied with. So dude, I'm going to be honest. The NHL playoff picture changes like every single day in that league, and it confuses the hell out of me. So I'm probably not even the guy to ask. We got to get David back on.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of like the Premier League in that way, where there's like a little bit of a point system. So
yes.
Was that correct though, that an overtime win is worth more than a regulation win?
Yeah, because if you get to overtime, you get a point anyways. So it's like if you get that win in overtime, you get the extra point. So it's just like you can get a leg up on some. Yeah, it is interesting.
Okay. Okay, so that answers question number 1. So I'm assuming the Capitals must have had more overtime wins than the Red Wings did, or even just overtime
Maybe.
losses.
Yeah, I don't even know. All I know is that I was crushed when the Wings didn't make it because I thought they for sure had it in the bag, and then they kind of stumbled in mid-March, and here we are.
Well, the big thing I saw was that so the Flyers play the Capitals in the last game of the year, and for some reason, the Flyers pulled their goalie at the very end of the game, which
Yes,
gave the Capitals the win. I don't know. I don't know.
they got
I'm
to
not
empty that
like
goal. Yeah,
as a Detroit fan, I'm angry about it, but I don't have much skin in the game at the end of the day, you know? Anyway, so that's my NHL question. Thank you for answering that. Next question comes with golf. To my understanding, I thought the Masters was the end of the golf season. Is it the beginning of the golf season?
yeah. This is where things really heat up because then you got there's the U.S. Open, there's the British Open, which is just the Open, and that kind of happens. I know the Open is in July, so I think we're just starting pretty much with the big dogs.
Okay, so US Open, British Open, and then these are all like they're not are they PGA events or are they just like
Yeah, so they're PGA events, but they're the majors, so that's why the live golfers can still do them because they're the major
oh, okay.
events. And that, yeah, and there's four major events: PGA, Masters, U.S. Open, and British Open.
Okay, there we go. Trent, there is our sports guy on the Double Tech pod. You know, this is a sports podcast, Trent. This is a sports podcast. I'll pull my weight every once in a while, but you can always rely on Trent to give you that up to date knowledge of things like this. And Trent, there's a little satire in what I'm saying right now because at the end of the day, we're like, yeah, I mean, it's golf, it's whatever, you know.
Yeah, like I
we
don't
both
really
we
know how to
both
pull
enjoy
off.
playing it. I'm shooting 25 over anyways. It's not like it's that important to me. I actually let me tell you something. I got out on the golf course last weekend for the first time. It
It
was a
was
really
warm
warm
enough.
weekend. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We had like a random weekend here in Omaha and it was like nearing 80 degrees. Like it was random. It was like it was the weekend I got home from Florida. So it was like I left the warm to go to the warm. And then me and my buddy from work were like, yeah, let's go play 18. Definitely was a little rusty. Definitely was. And I still slice every single drive. That hasn't changed. But it's the first time of the season and we're looking to get better. So that's all I can say about it. Trent, how
Dude,
often do you go golfing?
I cannot bring myself to go golfing down here because there are some really nice courses in this
Is this
area that
serious?
I would be a fish out of water down here. Because like you, Ethan, I slice everything. My clubs are from the '90s. They're my dad's old clubs. The drivers all beat up. I got like a brass putter from like the '60s. Like I would
That's
not
pretty
fit
on
in down
brand.
here.
That's pretty on brand for you.
I'm not a good golfer as it is, but then I always have fun. I always enjoy myself. But then you throw in the equipment I'd be schlepping around on the course. It would not be pretty.
Sure. Yep. Now, are you the guy on the golf course? Like, are you okay with playing music on the golf course?
I am.
Yeah, I didn't know how traditional you were because there's some people you go out with and they're like, no music, no snacks. Like we play a straight edge game here. And if you really were to like, and this is what shocked me, I've spent a lot of time listening to some golf content this past week, but like when you dive into like the rules of like the majors and like the preferred lies and the drops and like all the intricate things in there, there is a lot of things that I just never knew about like that have to do with like course management and things like that. It's a slippery slope, I would say, of a rule book.
Dude, there's a lot of things that I still don't know. Like I just watch it's like you learn something every time you watch one of these majors because like you said, the preferred lies, like there's some cheeky ways to go about some of this stuff
Right.
when you have a little bit of a bad shot or something like that and where you drop
Yeah,
it and where you're allowed to drop it from and all that stuff, dude. It blows my mind.
exactly. Exactly. Well, anyways, that was some fun golf talk. Let's head into some of the big headlines here. And like I said, there's not a lot of big stuff going on this time of year. So we can touch on a few things. Something that we didn't get to talk about because we've been gone for a couple weeks was March Madness in the NCAA final. UConn beating Purdue by a good amount. It was expected, in my opinion. I think UConn is this is truly a dynasty. I think Dan Hurley is that coach. He leads a tight ship over there. Klingon is an absolute animal. They had a deep roster. I don't think it was ever a question that they were going to lose that game. And quite frankly, from the tip of the tournament, I don't think it was a question at all that they were going to lose the whole thing. Trent, what do you think about how that championship game went? What do you think about Zach Edey as a player and his future moving forward?
Well, the only reason I was ever hesitant to pick UConn is because the whole back-to-back champions thing doesn't really happen very often, But you're right. I mean, they were the best team from start to finish all year. And we did kind of get 1 versus 2 because Purdue was right up there all year, too. So I think the basketball purists got what they wanted. I thought it was pretty clear from the jump of that game that UConn could play Purdue's game and Purdue could not play UConn's game. It was one of those deals where if you want to try to slow it down like Purdue likes to do with Zach Edey and stuff, UConn can just beat you by slowing it down. But if you try to speed it up and play at UConn's pace, they're going to run you right off the floor. So, yeah, like you said, they're the best team all year. They deserved it. Credit to Dan Hurley. And I think it's awesome that he's staying there, by the way, because with Coach Cal leaving Kentucky, there were some rumblings that maybe they'd try to poach Danny Hurley, and he was like, nah, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, UConn, I think, is going to be a little bit of a dynasty for years to come. Like I said, Dan Hurley's that guy. They totally 100% earned that national championship. What do you think about a three-peat? Now, that's never happened before, has it?
Maybe John Wooden's UCLA team did or something, but it certainly hasn't happened in recent history.
Yeah, so I mean that's something to look at as the years come on and as the recruiting happens and the transfer portal opens up. I'd be interested to see what the odds on that for Vegas would be. But yeah, it was a good tournament. It was fun. I'm the type of guy where like sometimes if there's like a clear-cut winner towards the end of the tournament, I'm just like not really bought in. Like I have a lot more fun with those beginning games because like the upsets, the drama, the drama. But like I get to the end of it and I'm like, bro, this is like it's so clearly gonna be UConn winning. I almost enjoyed the women's Final Four a little bit more, low key. Almost. I'm not gonna fully put my head out and say I did, but like it was watchable and it was enjoyable. I would say I definitely enjoyed watching the women's Final Four, and it's cool. It's cool. Like it's cool to see that like it's picking up steam. It's good for the sport. This like the draft was super cool. Like hearing all these like all the women's players that are going to these different teams, and some of them like the Cardoso girl and Angel Reese, like they're on the same team now. Like I don't know who the Chicago Sky. They got like 2 top 10 picks. I don't know how that happened, but they're like the Chicago Bears of the WNBA, I guess. 2 top 10 picks.
Chicago just loading up on top 10 picks. No, for real though, you're right. The women deserve a hell of a lot of credit because they actually outdrew the men in terms of viewership for the championship game by like 2 million. Like it really wasn't that close. Undefeated South Carolina versus Caitlin Clark. Like, well, what's gonna be better than that, right? So now the question is, can the women's tournament continue this momentum? Can they take what they did this year, which was I don't want to call it lightning in a bottle, but it was unprecedented for the women's tournament, and it's very impressive. Can they roll that in next year? Ride that wave,
Mm-hmm. I think that's the question of the day. They have to do something to keep this way. If they want to see the sport change, they have to do something to maintain this momentum. I think you hit the nail on the coffin with that. Another thing that happened last week, UFC 300. I am not the type of guy that's going to go out and get pay-per-view. I'm a penny pincher at times, very frugal with my money, but I will 100% watch the highlights. And as I watch the highlights of this UFC 300, I am nothing short of impressed at everything that I saw. I think that Max Holloway fight at the very end was some of the greatest sports stuff I've ever seen. Just like as a fan who's not really that into UFC, that made me want to get more into it. It really did. And in the last 10 seconds of the fight, Max Holloway, the clear-cut winner, didn't even need to do anything, but for the respect of the sport. And Trent, a couple weeks ago, we had a conversation about like embarrassing things that could happen to you in a ring. And I made a comment about like, it's hard for me to choose something embarrassing to happen in a combat sport. And this is why, because when you go out and you literally are just 10 seconds left, mano y mano, like nothing matters, no judges, it's just me and you throwing hands at each other. It really is at the end of the day just a respect of the sport. Like this is the sport right here, and it proved to be one of the coldest moments in UFC history. UFC knocking out or not UFC, Max Holloway knocking out whoever that was his name, Gagey. Do you
I
know?
saw it. I don't remember the names, but you're exactly right. Like that is so entertaining for the last 10 seconds. Just be like, meet me in the middle. Let's go. We're doing it. Gloves
Yeah.
are off and just go for it. That is pretty cool. And it proves your point from a couple weeks ago. You're exactly right.
And I think it's cool because and obviously, okay, so Double Tech Podcast, Ethan and Trent, not UFC guys, for sure. But the whoever he knocked out, like later, like tweeted him out and was like nothing but respect for Max Holloway. He's a dog. Like there was no bad blood there. There was no bad blood at all. It was just like pure respect, pro like game respects game kind of thing. And that was really cool to see from a viewer standpoint. But I heard UFC 300 was one of the best cards in a long time. So it was cool to see that. And it made me want to be bought in for, UFC 301, 302 coming up. There's going to be a lot of cool fights this summer. I heard Conor McGregor's coming back soon. Trent, kind of like UFC, but we're going boxing. Did you happen to see anything about the Ryan Garcia Devin Haney fight?
No, enlighten me.
So I think it was last night. I think they fought last night, and I only knew about it because, dude, and this is kind of a spoiler for later. I'm going to talk about Ryan Garcia here in my throne room doghouse. This guy is just always in media, just saying something totally outlandish, just like completely off the hinges. And it makes me wonder about this guy because you get knocked in the head so many times, that's when the CTE starts to develop. But this guy has been calling out Devin Haney, and Haney's this boxer or whatever. And like it's typical fighter, like drawing back and forth. But at the weigh-in, Haney was like, you have to pay me $500K for every pound you're over. And Ryan Garcia's like, fine, like I'll do that. Like, sure. Sure enough, Ryan Garcia is 3 pounds over 140. And so he ends up shelling out $1.5 million to Devin Haney. And it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing right now? But then they fight 2 days later, and then Ryan Garcia won. So it was pretty cool. I mean, Garcia knocked him down a couple times. So that was cool to see. I personally like boxing a little bit more than UFC. I'm not really
Me
like
too.
well versed on the takedown stuff. I like a good old fashioned fisticuff, if you may. But yeah, that happened last night. I don't know if you saw anything about it. Is our combat sports big in Florida?
Not at all.
Or
Although
okay,
I will say, like, I think everyone, if there's a really good boxing fight on, I think everyone who's a sports fan would probably, if it gets talked about enough, would probably have some interest, whether or not they actually buy the fight, but they would at least pay attention to who won and stuff. Wouldn't you agree with that or no?
sure.
I feel like
Yeah.
boxing, we missed the golden era, and I really wish we didn't. You know what I mean? Like, if we saw Tyson in his prime, that's one of the
Oh
athletes that
yeah.
I really wish we could have watched,
Uh-huh. Hey man, Mike Tyson, Jake Paul coming up soon. I remember, dude. I just remember Manny Pacquiao and Floyd. Like I
Yes.
remember that
Yes.
fight. And then didn't like Conor McGregor end up fighting Floyd?
Yeah, so Manny Pacquiao and Floyd fought in I think it was 2015, and that was like a huge deal because but the whole complaint was it was about 3-4 years too late because Pacquiao at that point was out of his prime and he had a rotator cuff torn. He was basically fighting Floyd with one arm, but then he fought McGregor in an exhibition in 2017. That was nuts because Conor McGregor was just coming out of UFC, and he was the dog in UFC for like 3-4 years, right? And then he was just coming out. Do you remember how
Yeah.
hyped up that fight
Yeah.
was?
Yeah. And that was the thing though. That was the thing where it's like if it's a fight that's big enough, just your average sports fan's gonna find a way to watch it. And that's exactly what happened. I remember I rolled up to somebody's house with
Me
the fight,
too.
and I was just
Yeah.
like, I don't really know much about this, but like but wasn't the fight not that good? Like wasn't it just like they were kind of hugging each
I mean,
other?
McGregor was like taunting him a bunch, and yeah, then they just kept getting wrapped up. But I remember, I think that was Floyd was 49-0 going into it. So then that was his 50th win. And then I remember later that spring, that fight was in the fall. So like a few months later, I saw Floyd Mayweather Sr. at the Rivertown Mall, and he's walking around wearing this big, like this black T-shirt and he's like jacked still. He's wearing this black T-shirt with a big in gold letters says 50-0, and I'm like, okay, this this is a little obnoxious, but hey, if you're 50-0, you
Yeah.
can say whatever you want.
Sure. Yeah. A little Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is from Grand Rapids, correct?
Yes,
Where did he go to high school?
I don't take this the wrong way. I don't even know if he did. I have no idea. I know that he doesn't
Oh.
really rep GA. I know that. I don't know where he went to school. No idea.
Oh. Yes, a couple famous athletes from GR. We got Floyd Mayweather and Devin Booker, believe it or not. Moving on here, let's talk MLB season so far. Nothing much to talk about. We're only about 25-ish games into the season. Trent, do you have anything that you notice early on where you're like this team or this player could be making some noise, or on the other side, these guys have been really disappointing? I know that if we're talking about our Detroit Tigers, things are kind of just so,
Yeah.
it's better than last year, but we're making some sort of noise, which is fine.
Yeah, like the Tigers specifically, their whole thing over the last 4 or 5 years since AJ Hinch got to town was they just have horrible starts. Their month of April and
Yeah.
May are just terrible. So it's nice to see that they're at least not losing the season in the first couple months. You know what I'm saying? They're above 500 right now, 11-10. And as we record at 11:30 on a Sunday, and they're playing, I think, at 2:00 today. So, a decent start. Could be a lot worse, and it has been a lot worse in recent history. But Ethan, my biggest takeaway from the whole season so far is how good the AL East is. The Yankees are off to their best start ever. And if you're the New York Yankees and you're doing the best that you're like, if you are the Yankees and you're off to the best start you've ever had, and you're the Yankees, that's very impressive. Like that's a good litmus test for where baseball is. And then you go down the line, man, every team in that division is at least 2 games above 500. The Orioles last year won like 100 some games or 90 some games. I forget what it was. So that division is must watch. And for us Tigers fans, they're going to get to play the Rays. That's their next series after they wrap up today with Minnesota. So the AL East has blown me away. That's my biggest takeaway from the early season.
Yeah, and mind you, with the Yankees as well, they're doing all that without their ace, Garrett Cole. I don't know when he plans to come back, but if you're, like you said, off to the best start of your best start in your team history, and you're missing your ace, the guy that is a Cy Young contender, that's something to be excited about for sure. A couple things I also like to see. The Houston Astros looking like they're off to a rough start, doing worse than the Athletics. And it is the last season that the Athletics will play in Oakland, as a matter of fact. So that's kind of interesting. The Colorado Rockies stink. The Miami Marlins stink. The New York Mets, not as bad as I think they thought they were going to be.
I think they started 0-5. The Mets. I think
Yeah.
they started 0-5 and they're now 12-8. So that's impressive.
Yeah, that's kind of fun to watch. But again, it's early. And I think that's a lot of people get caught up in the fact that it's an 162 game season. So 25 games in, you can't make too many assumptions about your team yet. You really got to wait until you get into the thick of it, games 70 through 100. That's when you can really start to be like, okay, here's what we got, But 25 games in, you got to wait. You got to wait a little bit. I'm becoming a lot more of a baseball fan, Trent, to be honest. I kind of enjoy like not the calmness of it, but like the fact that it's so like leisurely,
Yes.
where it's like you don't really have to be like dialed in. You can just kind of turn it on, a little background noise. Every once in a while, something dope happens. And then when it really gets to the end, then you can like kind of lock in. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. And they've done a really good job with the pitch clock of moving the game along and stuff. And our demographic, Ethan, is what they're going for. They want the younger people to get into it because that is what's going to drive the sport further to the top. So Rob Manfred and the MLB deserve some credit for that. But I think it's funny. Correct me if I'm wrong. The top 3 sports that you like watching probably are like football, basketball, and soccer, like Premier League. And
Yeah.
that kind of stuff is just intense wire to wire. You know what I mean? You got to be dialed
Yeah.
in. Basketball, maybe there's some moments where like you're not, but soccer, it's like you got to be dialed in the whole game. Baseball is a little more relaxed, I feel like, and because they've
Mhm.
sped the game up a little bit, they found that sweet spot between it's not staggeringly boring, but it still moves along at a decent clip, and you can get the game in less than 2 hours. So I agree with you, man.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's something I heard this the other day. Baseball is a sport that was built for the radio. Like, you can
Yeah,
listen like, when you're just listening to the radio, football is, like it's hard because there's so much, like, pre-snap stuff, so much to do with, like, formations and, people in motion. It's hard to get all that. Basketball still is, like, a really fast sport, so it's hard to, like, really do that well. But baseball is that sport where you can really kinda take your time methodically with it and listen to it. So
yeah. Because if you think,
something to think about.
go ahead, sorry.
No, that's all I was gonna say. Something to think about.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, yeah, like if you think about it from the broadcaster standpoint, it's like they don't have to describe all this pre-snap motion stuff or where guys are at on the
Right.
court in basketball. And that. Like they're just going to tell you, all right, Baez puts one to right field, and like there he is. He rounded first, he's going to second. Like it's pretty simple as
Yeah.
far as like
It's one pitch
you,
at a time, pitcher versus batter.
and
And
that's why
whatever
so
that
many
guy
MLB
does.
broadcasters are legendary because they have so much time in between to tell stories and talk and kind of make it their own brand, if you will. Dan Dickerson for
Right.
the Tigers, unbelievable, best in the
Is
game.
that is that like the guy? Is that the main guy?
Yeah, for
Because
the
I
Tigers,
was
he
gonna
is.
say I really like him. I really like him. Is he the guy that like does like the Bally Sports Detroit? Like he's like
No, Valley
the
Sports
TV
Detroit's
guy.
Jason Benetti is the TV guy, and it's his first season on the job,
I like
and he
Jason
is
Benetti.
he's very good. He came to Detroit from Chicago. Chicago. He was with the White Sox for a few seasons, and he's a Chicago native. So to leave that job for Detroit
Oh.
speaks volumes about how valuable the Detroit job is and how good he's been. So he's been rock solid. But Dan Dickerson's the radio guy for the Tigers. He's the one that
Oh.
is like legendary status. Benetti's on his way, but Dan Dickerson is as good as it gets.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Next on our kind of big, in my opinion, this is like a big topic, but the NBA playoffs are starting up. A couple headlines heading into these playoffs. If we're looking at the Eastern Conference, the Celtics winning the Eastern Conference by a wide margin, being 64-18, boasting a 780 win percentage. Missing the playoffs barely, and I'm talking about the play-in included, where the Brooklyn Nets, and the Raptors, I guess not really barely, from the East. And then if you look at the West was a very hot race, it seemed like, for a second. The Warriors and the Rockets seemed to be duking it out for that last spot. But eventually, when it came down to it, the Warriors cut them out. The Warriors losing in the play-in was interesting for me because I feel like from our era, Trent, we're so used to seeing Curry and Clay and Draymond like in the Western Conference Finals and even in the finals, but they are currently on a downward trend. And Clay Thompson shooting and making 0 field goals in the play-in game. Something interesting to see there. But overall, I wanted to talk about who you think is going to come out on top from each conference, Trent. So we got a long playoff, 7-game series. I want your Eastern Conference pick, and I want your Western Conference pick.
Okay, in the East, and I hate to say this because I will be rooting with every fiber in me against the Boston Celtics, but man, they cleared the East by 14 games. This kind of feels like a little Purdue-esque that we were talking about, where it's like, if not this year, when are they going to do it? Because the Boston Celtics have been a top 2 team in the East since Tatum got there, basically in 2017. So it's hard for me to see a path like they get the Heat in round 1 without Jimmy. You know what I mean? And then they get the
Right.
Cavs or the Magic in the second round, who either one of those teams would just be happy to win a playoff series with their young core. So I like Boston. In the West, let's shake things up. I got Minnesota. Give me Minnesota. I love Edwards. I don't know if you saw him
Really?
I don't know if you saw him getting all fired up and jaw jacking with KD the other day. That was awesome. He kind of has that FU mentality that I think you need to have to really rise and win in a place like Minnesota, because you're not LA or you're not Boston, or even Miami for that matter. You're playing in Minnesota. You got to have everyone jacked up. And Rudy Gobert, by the way, he gets a lot of hate. He's about to win his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award, I believe. So if he's able to stay on the court and stay out of foul trouble and just keep everything in front of him, I think they've got the makeup to beat a team like Denver. Now, if it's not Minnesota, it's going to be Denver, because I don't think OKC is going to take that step right away, even though they're the number 1 seed. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, let me start off and I think those were some good takes, Trent. I was thoroughly impressed with how Minnesota played yesterday, and thoroughly impressed. I'm so used to seeing these teams that have good regular seasons go into the playoffs and then just like because we talk so often about the NBA like regular season having no like it doesn't matter.
No
Everything only
juice. Yeah.
starts. Yep, everything only starts when you get to the playoffs. So it's like once we get here, you see so often these teams that have good regular seasons and everyone's like, "Oh wow, they're a high seed." Play like a team like the Lakers who finish, 8th or 7th, and then they win. And it's like, yeah, it's because they didn't really try in the regular season. Now that they're here, now they're trying, kind of thing. So I was kind of waiting for that in the Timberwolves game. They had a really good regular season, but I was waiting for the Suns to come in and kind of be like, okay, KD, D-Book, Bradley Beal, all of a sudden we start to do well. But I was, again, thoroughly impressed with Anthony Edwards, and I think he is that guy. And I don't hate your pick in the Timberwolves at all. I'm going to kind of stick to my UConn in me. I'm going to go back to the Denver Nuggets. I think they have such a complete team with just fluidity all throughout their offense. Like watching the highlights from yesterday, seeing the movement, I think they're clearly the best put together team in that Western Conference. I would be surprised to see them lose a 7-game series to somebody like the Timberwolves or the Thunder or anybody else. So I'm going to take the Nuggets. And then I think when you go over to the East, and this is what I'm going to say, I think it's a little different out East. It's a different game with these teams that are in the playoffs. Like you said, you see a lot younger of cores. You see a lot of this like new style of basketball. And I got a hot take, bro. I really do.
What's up?
I can see the Cleveland Cavaliers coming out of the East.
All right.
Low
All
key.
right.
I think they're going to handle, and I'm not saying that just because of how they did yesterday, but I think they're going to handle the Magic easily. And then I think they match up very well with the Celtics. I think they're going to match up well with them, and I think they're going to get the job done. Donovan Mitchell, I don't know what it is with him in the playoffs, but this guy turns into like prime Allen Iverson when it's time to like make a basket. He is so good when it comes to the playoffs. And it's so funny, Trent, because we're Pistons fans, we suck. Okay. But like when I watch these Pistons games, it feels like I'm sweating out like every single offensive possession, every single
Yep.
bucket we get. I feel like it's like it doesn't happen all the time. When I watch a team like the Cavaliers and somebody like Donovan Mitchell or with the Knicks, like Jalen Brunson, when I watch these games, they score so easily and they hit these shots that never happen for a Detroit team or for just any bad team, And it makes me think like, wow, this is what this is what the fan experience should be like.
Yes.
And when you have a guy like Donovan Mitchell or even Darius Garland is very good. Evan Mobley, very good. When you have these type of guys, they get buckets and they make hard shots. The
Yeah.
Celtics have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They do the same thing, but it's so interesting to me that like we are accustomed to this Detroit Pistons style of basketball when we
Right.
have like it's out there, it's out there,
Right.
the good game.
It's like other teams like the Cavs and Celtics are playing a different sport than the Pistons are. Like they're just out there playing hero ball, not in a bad way. Like they've got the stars to play star-studded basketball, and One thing I'll just add, one thing that I'll add to this, the only reason I'm a little less bullish on the Cavs than you are is because they'd have to play Boston in the second round. And Boston made a move in the offseason where they went out and got Drew Holiday to lock up a guy like Donovan Mitchell. And by lock up, I mean, just contain him, basically. He can't average 30 for the series. If he averages 22 for the series, that's a win for the Celtics, if you will. But I don't hate that, E, because like you said, I mean, another area of weakness for Boston is their bigs. They don't have the bigs to hang with an Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen. So I hope we get that matchup. I'm with you. I think the Cavs will handle Orlando pretty easily, and then we'll see what happens. Let me ask you this, though, before we move on. And this can be a quick answer. Do you have any faith in the Bucks to turn the corner and figure it out? Because they got Dame. They got Giannis. We talk about stars winning. They got those two dudes.
At the end of the day, they have Giannis, and Giannis sort of like Donovan Mitchell. Like when it's playoff time, the dude is darn near unguardable. And when you put him with a Damian Lillard, I'm sure they'll get – because who do they got? They got the Pacers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Bucks will handle that series in 5 games or less, in my opinion. But hey, they have one of the most overrated coaches in the league at the helm. So whether he's actually coaching or whether he's just sitting there existing, the Bucks have that on their records. And Trent, we were asked to mention this guy, yes, Doc Rivers, on this podcast. This guy is just, and I hate to dog on a guy too much because he's done good things for the league. But if you were to ask me how he has a job, I would not be able to give you a straight answer. I don't know. I don't know how he has a job. Trent, your comments on Doc Rivers.
Yeah, shout out to our good buddy who I'll leave anonymous in case he wanted to be, but he knows who he is. He specifically asked us to dog on Doc Rivers this week. He called him an industry plant. So, there's that going on. But, I mean, at some point, man, what's the definition of insanity? It's like doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's what it is with these teams hiring Doc Rivers. At what point are we going to just give someone else an opportunity, give someone else a chance to coach? And I understand that other guy, I don't even remember his name, forgive me, but the Bucks who they fired to bring in Doc Rivers, I get it. NBA coaching is a little bit different. It's kind of like you got to get along with the star players, and the star players got to like you. Otherwise, it ain't going to be a good fit in the locker room. So if he just didn't get along with Giannis and whatnot, I understand you got to make a change. What are you doing bringing in Doc Rivers, man? What was the thought process there? I don't get it.
It might be an industry plant, it might be a marketing scheme. It might be a way to draw more fans, increase the market for Milwaukee. I don't know, man. I never knew. At first I was like, oh, like, sure. Like he's a veteran coach. And then as the year went, I was like, these guys kind of stink. So
yeah.
What
are we doing?
I don't know what the thought process was there. Trent, do you think that the Lakers have any chance against the Nuggets?
I'm never going to say LeBron's got zero chance, any team with LeBron, but like you saw last night, Anthony Davis and LeBron played very, very, very well, and the Nuggets still just kind of turned the Jets on in the third quarter and ran with it. And if you remember in the Western Conference Finals last year, that's kind of what we saw. LeBron was having an all-time LeBron performance in Game 4 to try to avoid that sweep, and the Lakers got up big early, and then the Nuggets just said, dude, we're a juggernaut. No one's – this is the key, too, with your whole UConn thought process, E, is – I don't really care who's on the other side. It's going to be hard to beat Denver 4 times in 7 games. So, exactly. I will concede that. You got to beat them 4 times. And even last night when they're having a bit of a shaky first half, they go into that locker room, they make those adjustments. So, no, I'm not going to give the Lakers much of a chance in this first round series unless there's like a tragic injury to the Nuggets or something like that.
Yeah, and that's what makes the NBA playoffs interesting, because it really is a matter of who is the better team. It's not just like somebody having an off day, you go out there and you lose because they shoot the lights out. It's like you got to do that for 7 games, maybe. But like you said, you have to beat them 4 times. And that's why I think it's just going to be hard to beat a team like Denver, a team that's had that opportunity. Same with the Bucks, even though they are coached by Doc Rivers, like they've been champs. They've been this route before. Guys like Giannis, Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, guys that have been on this squad for a few years now, they know what it takes. And if you're playing a team that knows what it takes, I think it's going to be hard for a team like the Magic or the Pacers or a team like even a little bit like the Timberwolves. These guys, it takes longevity, you know.
For sure.
I think in a little bit though, the Magic are going to be a force for sure. I think they have a fantastic young core. Banchero is so good. He just needs a little bit of help, I think, around him. Um, Trent, watching the play-in tournament, I have to mention this because I was quite frankly appalled by my viewing experience. The Atlanta Hawks had no business being where they were. They stink. They utterly stink, and you're looking at me like I'm a guy who lost some money on them, which might be the truth. But with that, regardless of that being said,
Yeah.
I was watching this team and again, the NBA is interesting because you can like get those superstar teams together, guys like Trae Young and Dejounte Murray, but it just doesn't work sometimes. It just doesn't work. And I don't know if that's because of the coaching. I don't know if that's because of like the personalities of these players, but it's crazy to me that when you get an elite 1-2 guard set like that, that they can't put up somewhat of a fight. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it was crazy to me watching that.
Well, Trae Young's whole style of play is just not conducive to winning, and you see now the Hawks it sounds like they're going to shop him. They're going to trade him this offseason and try to like kind of hit reset, which I think is a good thing for all parties involved. But you can look at like the Warriors when they were first up and coming, and no one thought that was going to end up working, with Steph and Clay. The problem is, or the difference is, I should say, they had a Draymond. They had a great coach in Steve Kerr. They played really strong team basketball. Like, it's not just like they would go out there and chuck, because Steph does that at times where he'll just heat check, and it's like, what are you doing? But Trae Young doesn't have that next gear of like, he hasn't earned that respect yet. And that's why I think it'll be good for him to go somewhere else, to maybe team up with someone else and have more of a complete team, to your point, where it's like they could actually compete. Because the Hawks were not a good team, straight up, point blank. They were 10 games under 500 and end up making this play-in tournament. And then they're bounced right away before they can even get off the bus.
Yeah, jeez, man. Yeah, something interesting. Okay, well, anyways, let's move on here. We both put our NBA playoff picks in. We got the other side of game ones happening today throughout Sunday. Let's move into our patented segment, the throne room and doghouse. 2 picks for guys who you think deserve the Kala, and then a pick for who you think deserves the crown, if you may. Trent, would you like to start with your doghouse pick today?
I can, and I can make this very quick because everyone knows how I feel about this individual anyways. Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, said he's going all in this offseason and in free agency. And so far, the Cowboys have, check notes, done nothing. So a lot of pressure on Jerry as we approach the draft on Thursday in Detroit, by the way. I just, any chance I get to take a dig at the Cowboys, I'm going to do it. They're such a mess right now. They don't know what they're doing with Dak. They don't know who they're going to draft. They struck out on everyone in free agency. And it's a big week for Jerry. How's that?
It is. And they actually have a net loss because didn't they lose Tony Pollard in the process?
Yes.
So, yeah, bad day to be a Cowboys fan. Close friend of mine, Thomas Burchard, calling him out right now. My co-teacher here in school, big Cowboys fan. Tough for him. Tough sight to see. Couldn't be me as a Lions fan, but maybe I'll mark my words. But my doghouse pick, I actually got 2. First doghouse pick, and we've mentioned both of these guys so far. First doghouse pick, Ryan Garcia. He won the fight yesterday. I'll tip my cap to Ryan Garcia. He won the fight. But like I was saying, Trent, this guy is in the media all the time, always just saying something so crazy. And it kind of like makes me worried a little bit, like somebody needs to check on him, because some of the stuff that he says and claims is just like no one is monitoring what he does. And some of it, he's like making a fool out of himself. Some of it, he's like kind of bordering some, you're canceled kind of things. But all I'm saying is somebody check on Ryan Garcia. somebody make sure he's doing okay. Somebody maybe get him tested for a couple things. I hope he's doing good. I really do. I'm praying for him. Ryan Garcia is in my doghouse, even though he won yesterday. Congratulations, Ryan. But I think somebody needs to just make sure that he's doing good. So Ryan Garcia, number one. Number two in my doghouse, Trae Young. This guy has no sense, like you said, of team basketball. This guy goes out there and all he's looking to do is shoot. All he's looking to do is pass behind his back. Goes out and just lays up a total stinker for a game, lets down the city of Atlanta, lets down his team, the Atlanta Hawks. And I really do hope the best for him. I hope he finds his way on another team. I think his tenure on the Hawks is over. But it's crazy to think that, man, in his heyday, like the Hawks and Knicks, I will remember that first round matchup being so intense, so like fans yelling at Trae, they hate him, the F Trae Young Trance, and he was a villain for a long time, but he just doesn't hold that level of respect anymore. He simply does not. He's not feared. Everyone kind of views him as this guy that's just going to chuck up shots, and I'm over it. I'm over it. He's fell off, in my opinion.
He needs a change
Trent,
of scenery.
What about? Yeah, he needs a change of scenery very bad. Trent, what about your throne room pick today?
All right, I'm fired up for one. I mentioned this guy already on the show, but I'm rocking with the T-Wolves, and I got to give Anthony Edwards his credit because him barking at KD yesterday, basically saying, I'm here now, I'm that guy. And KD was loving it, to his credit. KD was like, yeah, I mean, what can I say? This guy is torching us right now. The T-Wolves win game one over the Suns by 25 points, and Ant Edwards has, let me look here, 33 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Stuffing the stat sheet, talking smack, backing it up, and the T-Wolves take a 1-0 lead as the 2 seed in the West. So I give them a lot of credit. I'm fired up to see kind of how 3 seed actually, but I'm fired up to see how Ant Edwards progresses and takes that full hero or villain, if you want to call it that, but just becomes a full superstar in this league throughout this playoff run because I think it's his time. Ant Edwards.
It really was fun to watch. And Anthony Edwards, a lot of people are calling him an MJ incarnate. A lot of people are saying that this guy's going to be that next dog, like that next Kobe, that next guy that just wants nothing more to win. And watching that, you can see a little glimpse of that in there. You can see that. So I don't hate that pick at all, Trent. I think Anthony Edwards is sick. My doghouse pick, or not my doghouse, my throne room pick is golf related. I'm going to give it to the winner of the Masters, the Scotty Scheffler. That is his second Masters. Very deserving, but not only because he's a dog on the golf course. I think just hearing his like post-game interviews, if you want to call it, or just his press conferences, he's just like a really nice guy. And he just seems like a super stand-up dude who like he's a family guy. He has a wife and kids. He's talked about his community around him and the people that he keeps close to his life. But just a guy that you look at and you're just like, I'm glad that this guy is famous. Like, I think this is the type of dude that you want to look up to. Like, this is a role model type of player, got a good head on his shoulders. Again, a super nice guy. The other golfers seem to really like him a lot. Scotty, you won the Masters and you're winning at life, my man. So I'm going to tip my cap to you. I'm going to give you your green jacket, if you may. But yeah, Scotty Scheffler getting my Masters or getting my throne room pick for the week.
That's
Any
a good one.
On that
Credit
one,
to him. And well, like you said about him being a family guy too, his wife apparently could have gone into labor at any moment during the Masters, and he said he's gone, he's out of there. Doesn't matter if he's leading, which he was the entire tournament, wire to wire, pretty much. He's like, I'm out, family guy, got to go see the kid, So yeah, it is cool. It is cool. That's like you said, that's the kind of guy you root for. And I know a lot of times in sports, we want the cartoon character, we want like the crazy animated whatever gets clicks, because it's entertaining. But every now and then it's like, okay, he's just a good guy. It's like Kirk Cousins. I root for Kirk Cousins because he's a good guy. And he's a Spartan, go green. But there you go.
And I agree. That he has the best interest of others in mind. So how are you going to hate on a guy like that?
How?
You really can't. You really can't. Well, it looks like we are 50 minutes in. Again, we knew this was going to be a little bit of a shorter episode today. Not much to talk about in the sports world. But regardless, we are going to do a little reflect and project today. But this week, we're switching it up a little bit. We mentioned on our last episode that we were going to look to kind of alter roles a little bit and have Trent give me a reflection and me give a projection. And that's exactly what we're doing today. We're going to see how I do. And I'm a little bit nervous for this. But Trent, why don't you break down your reflection pick today and how this is going to go?
Yeah, I'm fired up for this because as much as I do love to guess and take some swings, last episode I got a big fat 0 with the Phillies. So I don't. Ethan deserves a crack at this. We're gonna go back 10 years, Ethan, to the 2013-14 NBA season. All right.
Oh gosh.
This was the number 1 seed in the East that year, not the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat were the 2 seed. This was the number 1 seed. The Miami Heat beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals in 6 games. The 2013-2014 Indiana Pacers. I want to know how many players from that team you can give me.
All right, let me lock in. I know Paul George was on that squad.
Best player, yes. Bingo.
Oh, I might be able to roll off the whole starting lineup, actually. Paul George.
Yes.
Give me the point guard. Give me George Hill.
Yes, sir.
Give me blow in your ear, Mr. Lance Stevenson.
Yes, sir. Stay hot.
Give me the shot blocker, shot caller, Roy Hibbert at the 5 spot.
Georgetown product.
And man, I want to say they had big lefty David West on the team at the 4.
They sure did.
Oh, okay. So now we got to dig a little bit. Now we're getting into the bench. So that's okay, this is going to be a poll. So hold on. First of all, was Frank Vogel the coach?
He was. So you're at 6 right now, including the coach. That's pretty damn good.
Okay, give me Louis Scola off the bench.
Absolutely. Yes.
Give me shoot. Thinking back to that squad. Dude, yeah, I'm drawing a blank now. Was Aaron Aflalo on that team?
No, that's a great guess though. I'll say this: there's one more player I think you'd get. Anything other than that would be very, very impressive. But I think there's at least one more that you could get if you really think.
Okay, give me a position.
Swingman, like small forward.
Oh man. Is he an international player?
No. He was he was getting towards the twilight of his career when he was on this team.
Yeah. Okay. So my heart is telling me to go with ISO Joe Johnson.
No, but that's a good guess.
No. I got it. Danny Granger.
Ooh. Yes, sir. That's what I'm talking about. Danny Granger.
Lock
in. Let's go, E.
Dude, lock in. Okay. Wait. Okay. That I feel like that's all I can get. I feel like that's all I got in the tank.
I want to give you one more hint at another guy. All right.
Okay.
He was a guard at Ohio State.
Ooh. A guard at Ohio State. I mean, Aaron Kraft?
No, but similar era.
Mike Conley.
No.
No, he was on the Grizzlies at that time, huh?
Yes.
No, I don't know.
For what it's worth, this guy is not in the league anymore, but he was until like 2 years ago.
Dude, it's on the tip of my tongue. I don't know. CJ Watson?
Evan Turner. CJ Watson was on the team, though. Okay, so you get
He was?
Yes.
Okay, so CJ Watson, Evan Turner.
Yes. That's who I was thinking of. And he barely played, but that's just a name that I thought maybe you would recognize. Dude, that's you pretty much nailed that.
Who
Andrew
else?
Bynum.
Oh,
Andrew
wow.
Bynum's another guy that was on that team. Other recognizable names. I mean, Ian Mahimi. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Dude, he was on my team for the longest time when I used to play 2K back in the day.
Yeah.
Mahimi.
Ian Mahimi. And then the only other name that maybe we'd recognize is Solomon Hill. And because,
Oh, yeah.
it was George Hill and Solomon Hill. But, bro, you got 9, including the coach. That's pretty
All
good.
right. Okay. Okay. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Hey,
So,
for fun, let me tell you this. The other team I was maybe going to pick was the 2013 New York Knicks when they were the 2 seed in the East. Do you think you could have gotten 9 from that squad or no? We don't have to do it.
2013 New York Knicks.
We
I
don't have
do
to go
not think
through
I
it, but
could have gotten
that was the
9.
other squad I was maybe going to pick.
I
Because
know
that
I
was
could have gotten Melo and J.R. Smith. And I think I would have had to dig. I would have had to dig for the other ones.
I got you.
But
All right. Well, we went with
I'm
the right
good for
one
it, man.
clearly
I'm
because
gonna take 9. I'm gonna take 9. Little
9 is
Pacers,
good.
a little Pacers knowledge for you, dude. But I'll say though, like that was my heyday of 2K. That's when I grinded
Mm-hmm.
2K. So like I knew like all of those like fringe type of players. Nowadays, I'm a little bit rustier, so I'm glad you picked something from my era. But that
Well,
was
dude,
fun.
I gotta throw this in there. Yeah, you got on an absolute roll there with CJ Watson. Then when you got Danny Granger, that was like, but dude, you gotta ask your students this question because like I feel like for us, for people our age, when we were growing up, we learned the NBA by playing 2K. That's how we learned who was on the teams and who
Right.
was on the trade block and stuff like that, and who was coaching certain teams and how good teams were, even though it was just like player ratings and team ratings and
Yeah.
it's all subjective. But it's like that's kind of how that was our frame of reference. I wonder if kids these days, if it's still that way, like if that's how they learn leagues is by playing the video games.
Well, the sad thing is, bro, is all they play is Fortnite. Like it's all Fortnite. Like when I was their age, me and our good buddy Spencer, every single day after school, we would come home, we'd go to Spencer's house and we'd run Madden, but we would do fantasy like the draft. We would do like franchises, but we would like draft our teams. So you learned the names of these guys, like these backup quarterbacks that you had to draft in round 20,
Yes.
you know? So it was
Yep.
like that was like you said, that's how you learned is you played these sports games, you played the games where they threw all these bad players on your team and you just kind of had to learn everybody.
Yeah.
But no, all it is Fortnite now. So if it's not on Fortnite, they probably have no idea that it's happening. So
that's too bad. That's way too bad.
Fortnite has a chokehold on the youth gaming experience.
But hey, how about this episode of the Double Tech? How about it? We talk boxing, we talk UFC, we talk golf, and the Indiana Pacers got more tick than they probably ever will ever again on this show.
Yeah, ever again. But hey, that's what you get with the Double Tech. You get a little bit of here, a little bit of there. We talked about some sports we don't usually talk about today. Kind of wanted to get in some fun stuff as well. But folks, as Trent gave me the reflection, I will give you the projection. And I have a very short song lyric here. Trent, it's springtime. The weather's starting to get warmer. We're starting to see glimpses of lake houses, boating, things like that, having a good old summer. So I chose a song lyric by Zach Brown Band. That's right, not Zach Bryan. I'm talking about Zach Brown Band from the song Homegrown. I've got everything I need and nothing that I don't. Come on, somebody. That is your projection today. Have some fun. Enjoy the warmer weather coming up. Enjoy life. If you are listening, go ahead and throw us a follow, a 5-star rating. If you're following along on YouTube, maybe a subscribe, a comment, a like, whatever it is that you can do to support our mission here. Otherwise, this has been yet another episode of the Double Tech Podcast, number 10. Trent and folks, we will see you later.